What's up, everybody? It's been a little while. I go on one little vacation in the Sky Falls. So I guess that's the universe saying something. No more vacations for me. I guess we will stay locked up in the office for the foreseeable future. I feel like red was a proper color. Usually I only wear the same t-shirt over and over again, but I feel like red is the proper color for what's going on in the overall markets right now. I want to not do any crazy intros or tell you to hit the like button, even though I just did. So, but let's get right into this information here. I want to talk about why silver is down so cheap. As I'm making this video, I'm going to show all the charts and all the information that I've been digging up over here on the left. We got a lot to talk about. And I just want to basically draw out my entire theory, which has actually stayed pretty much the same, but we'll go over in detail how it's playing out right now in this video. And if you've been a subscriber to my channel, you know that I talk about this hot potato theory. And the hot potato theory is basically people go into the dollar and they hold the dollar until the potato gets too hot and they got to throw it at something. And I think we're seeing that right now. To kind of break down and summarize what I think is happening in the overall precious metals market and market in general is we're seeing a lot of people flocking into the dollar. They see it as a safe haven right now, which it's an artificial safe haven, but it seems that people are scared and they're going into the dollar. And because of that, we are seeing that hit the assets. We're seeing that hit gold and silver. We're seeing that hit the overall stock market in general, even though I don't really consider stocks assets. Some people do. I don't really see any custody there. I believe in owning actual physical assets, the real deal. But the overall stock market has crashed because of this dollar index. And I have over here on the left the chart of the dollar index. Maybe we'll just get right on into that and I'll show you what I'm looking at. Let me see here. Boom. Been a little while. I haven't been doing these videos. I apologize. I've been gone for a little bit, but let's get right on into this. Let me move me out of the way. Maybe make me a little bit smaller over here. All right. So this is the dollar index here, and this is going back. I brought it specifically back to this point because in December of 2007 was the start of the Great Recession, as they're calling it, the Great Recession. I think the Great Recession is about to come. I think we're already in it, really, and we're just about to get the real signs that we're in a real recession right now. But what's crazy is look at the dollar index. This is the dollar index. This is basically how strong the dollar is in the basket of currencies out there. And in 2007, we saw the dollar index go down. This is right at the beginning of the Great Recession from 2007. It happened in December of 2007 all the way until June of 2009. So this period from here, June of 2009 until here was the Great Recession. And what's interesting is you see in the beginning a bit of a people get scared, the dollar index goes down with the basket of currencies, and then we saw an artificial jump in the dollar index during the recession, exactly like we're seeing right now. We're seeing the dollar index have this artificial jump. We saw it's gone down a little bit, and now we have this artificial jump in the dollar index, like ridiculous jump in the dollar index based on everything that's going on. It kind of blows my mind seeing the dollar this high. But just to answer the question in brief, because I know a lot of people want to know what's going on with precious metals, the truth is dollar index is up, precious metals go down. It's that simple. Dollar index goes down, precious metals goes up. It really is that simple. And this is just from a dealer's perspective. I've used the dollar index for a very long time to gauge my buys in the precious metals business. And that really is just to simplify it. If someone wants the overall answer, keep your eyes on the dollar index. But what's interesting is when we study the last recession, because we see the dollar index peak out in 2009, and then basically it falls down from its peak during the recession at 90 on the dollar index, falls all the way down to just about 73 here, and then it goes back up and then falls down again. And this is, interestingly enough, on this fall in the dollar index from the peak here down to here was the bull run in gold. That brought gold to 2000. Well, I believe at the time it got it to around 1,800 an ounce, but that was the bull run in gold. And then we saw all-time highs in silver at this time period here. When the dollar index fell from this high at 90, down, fell all the way down to 73, that's when we saw silver at all-time highs of 48 an ounce. was in this period. So ironically enough, when the dollar index was high and then it fell, that caused the bull run. So right now, what do you see? You see the dollar index high, but what's interesting this time around, this is what's so crazy here. We'll come back to it. I have a bunch of other stuff I want to show you as well. But what's crazy this time around is basically there are so many more things going on in today's market than that was going on in 2009. Inflation wasn't nearly at the levels that it is now in 2009, probably because they changed the dollar supply from 4 trillion to over 20 trillion. It probably has something to do with that. Just a guess. In 2-3 years, they 5x'd the amount of dollars. So that might have done just a little something to the dollar. So basically, if you're long the dollar, which I believe in the hot potato theory that I've been talking about for a long time, I think it's a great idea to have about 30-40% of your wealth in cash right now. Not financial advice, just my personal opinion. I think having liquid cash, if and only if you have a plan of action with it. If you don't have a plan of action with your cash, you're better off not trying to time anything and just sitting in precious metals. That's my personal take on it, or whether it's real estate, whatever it is that you park your money in. If you don't have a plan with your cash and you're just sitting on cash because you think it's a good investment to sit on cash, I think that's a bad idea. But I have a plan of action with my cash pile. I want to be able to buy assets at the right time. And so I think right now it is a good time to be sitting on some cash. I've talked about that for a while. But timing it is the problem. Now, when you really decipher what's going on, you 5x the dollar supply in 2-3 years. Then you have all of this instability going on in world trade because of what's going on in the world right now. You have China, you got Russia. They're not really friendly to the dollar because, we weaponized SWIFT and kicked them off of the SWIFT network. Keep in mind, China and Russia have been planning to get kicked off the SWIFT network ever since we threatened it back in, I believe, 2014 was the first time we threatened to kick Russia off the SWIFT network and China with SWIFT. And then now we actually did do it with Russia. And if you think China didn't notice that, we're the largest debt nation. The U.S. is the largest debt nation, and we're weaponizing our artificial dollar. Really take that into account for a second. This is stuff that I probably shouldn't talk about because, I know there's somebody listening that doesn't want me to talk about this kind of stuff, but I can't help myself. I went on a little vacation. I come back, and all of these questions are being asked. Precious metals are down quite a bit. Stock market is taking a real hit. A lot of things are taking a big hit. But the truth is, why is the dollar gaining value right now? Do you really want to bet on the dollar continuing to get stronger and stronger and stronger? What I think happens next is and Powell has gone on the record to say this, you can actually Google it, Powell bringing up that there's room for other reserve currencies out there. This is a comment he made in the last 6 months. He's been talking about how there's room for another reserve currency. And when he's saying that, he's only saying there really is only one option, and that's the yuan. So if he's saying there's room for another reserve currency, he's talking about the Chinese yuan, or possibly he's talking about the ruble. Russia will probably only accept the ruble or gold or something along those lines for its assets, for its gas, and Europe relies quite a bit on Russian gas. So things along those lines is what Powell's talking about when there's room for another reserve currency. Now, if the Fed chair of the U.S. is saying there is room for competition within the reserve currency of the world, and right now the U.S. dollar is the only reserve currency, well, what does that tell us? Do you think the dollar is going to stay strong if the Fed chair himself says that there's room for another reserve currency? I'm not betting on that. I really am not. And so what happens when that new reserve currency drops and starts taking market share? Well, I believe that the dollar will drop. So basically, if the dollar index goes down like we saw in 2009, let me go back. So if the dollar index does this exact drop here, I will go to the silver chart as well. So this is the drop from June of 2010 all the way down to about 72. Imagine if the dollar index plummets down, to 90, 80, 70 and goes down to here. What do you think will happen to assets? What do you think would happen to gold and silver in that scenario? You see it up here, and gold and silver still holding pretty strong prices, even though we've had this big pullback. Considering how strong the dollar is artificially showing, I think this is artificial strength. I think this is fear This isn't there is a huge difference between fear and trust. And if there's one thing I want you to take from this video, it's that there's a big difference between fear and trust in an investment. Do you think that people holding dollars right now are in it due to fear, or do you think they're in it due to trusting the dollar? I happen to think it's fear-based, and that to me is a bad investment. So a lot of people are going in the dollar based out of fear, in my personal opinion, not due to trust. And this drop here, again, in the dollar index, this is the dollar losing buying power from 2010 to 2011. That caused the bull run in gold and silver. So remember that, 2010 to 2011. Now let's pull up silver. Let me grab silver real quick. Now we'll show, so this is the 2009 recession, 2010, 2011. This is what happened when the dollar index dropped from down to 70, what I just showed you in the chart before. Silver skyrocketed to its all-time high of just under 50 an ounce. And right now we're seeing silver here. What's interestingly enough, when we pull up gold, there was a huge bull run in the same time period when the dollar index fell from 2010, 2011. We saw gold get highs. But the interesting part is gold is back at those highs of 2011, but silver is just lagging. And I find silver, that's why I look at this pile of silver next to me and I go, one day, there's going to be a day in the near future where I am going to be very proud of you. Right now, I'm not very proud of you, but there will be a day. You will have your time, silver. I believe in you. This little chunk here will be worth a pretty penny in the near future, because I happen to think of the choice, choosing between gold and silver, I happen to think silver is the most undervalued of the two. I like both, but I would much rather be in silver than gold right now. Again, I like both, but silver is having the much more upside. It blows my mind that gold is back to the level that it was in 2000. And what's interesting is it holding the level that it was in 2011, but the dollar index being this strong. That's a big telltale sign for gold, in my personal opinion. So let me go back to the DXY. So again, this is that bull run that I'm showing you is this down spike in the DXY. What we're seeing in the last year, so this is the year chart, the DXY has just gone straight up. So this is what precious metals is against right now. Precious metals is against that kind of bull run in the dollar, getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So that is basically what is suppressing the price of silver, that in addition to all the other things that we know about. But the main one is that the dollar is showing artificial strength, which then holds the price of silver and gold down. But what's interesting is even though that's happened, gold hasn't been able to be held down. It's still getting new highs compared to when you pull back the chart. It's still back at those highs that were reached in 2011. Very interesting there. But just to show you how artificial the dollar's strength is, let's look at the M1 supply. This is a real chart. I showed this to my friend and he literally asked me, he goes, is that real? Is that actually real? Is that the M1 supply of the dollar? And yeah, it is in fact real. So in 2020, when all of this happened, the dollar there was about $4 trillion in circulation. Now, a lot of this is electronic. A lot of this is stuck in banks, but it doesn't change the fact that this was injected into the economy, and we will feel the effects of this through inflation and through just loss of trust in the dollar. This happened, by the way, as we are the largest debtor nation in the world. We injected this much cash while we're the largest debtor nation in the world. That's an interesting combination. So basically, we had more IOU notes than anybody else out there. And then instead of paying those IOU notes, we injected 5x more IOU notes. That's pretty much in a nutshell what happened here. And people are saying that the dollar is going to get strength because of this. Largest debtor nation, you injected from 4 trillion to over 20 trillion, and that's going to make us have a stronger dollar. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. So this is the federal funds rate. By the way, the federal funds rate prior, keep in mind, they would drop the federal funds rate to combat the recession. So let me move myself out of the way here. This gray period is the Great Recession of 2007 to 2009. The federal funds rate was up at over 5% prior to the last recession. It tanked. They dropped the federal funds rate down, and that's how they combat the recession, right? And then they left it so low for that long of a time period after the Great Recession. The interesting part is when they started to raise it, that is when you hit this new wall, and then they had to start excessive money printing. And then now they kept it this low, and just recently they just went that little tiny raise, not even to 1%. We're at 0.83%, and this is what's happening in the overall stock market right now. Not just talking about precious metals. You raise the federal funds rate just a little bit, and the stock market is completely getting tilted. Now imagine what happens if they will raise this up to where they need it to be, which is well over here. They need to get it way past 5% to combat inflation of 8%. We all know it's a lot higher than that. But this is not combating anything. This is basically taking what Powell is doing. I've talked about this in the past. He's like, he has a squirt gun, and he basically has filled it with gas, and he's using this squirt gun to battle an inferno. He's got an inflation fire in front of him, and he's using a gasoline-fueled squirt gun to combat inflation at this level, and he needs to jump it up to like 10% to stop this inflation, and he can't, because if he does, the stock market will plummet, and I don't even think he actually can, because then we would default. They wouldn't even be able to handle that. But that's how I see this market, and overall, I think it's just a matter of time before the thesis plays out and people flood into assets. So let me show you the stock market really quick. So basically, what blows my mind is if you let's pull up the 5-year right now and then go back from 2020. So this is when they started injecting money, and this is this gnarly pullback that we're seeing this is the S&P going from just under 5,000 down to where it is today, which is, let me pull up a 3-month here. Now it's down to 39. So peaked up at just under 5,000, now down to 39. Obviously a huge pullback in the market. But if you go back to 2020, when they started all this excessive money printing, it's got a lot more room to fall. And they keep playing with this federal funds rate, and they keep messing around. It's just a matter of time before we see a true recession happen and the stock market really plummet. This is just the beginning, in my opinion. Some people think this is the bottom. I think the bottom is here. And it could go even further than that. I think the stock market will start plummeting and continue this downfall here. The difference this time around is I think there's eventually going to be a lack of trust in reserve currencies. So right now we use the dollar as the reserve currency, but I think in the near future, people are going to start looking to have reserve assets. The currencies will be considered like hot potato money to buy and transact things in the near term, but I think people are going to be gravitating. And now when I say people, I also mean countries. So I don't think countries, look at what's happened with the dollars on the balance sheet of China and Russia. They hold like no dollars on their balance sheet for a reason. They're going to reserve assets. So we're seeing countries like that doing that with a lack of trust with the dollar, but I think the people right now are looking for reserve assets. That's the difference, because in our minds, and what Powell will bring up is reserve currencies. Oh, we're the reserve currency. Well, what if the people stop trusting these currencies that are artificially manipulated with this Keynesian model that we have, and they start moving to reserve assets? That changes the dynamic. And I think that's a dynamic that we're trying to get ahead in the precious metals industry. And I think everybody in the audience in here that is a precious metal stacker, that's what we're looking for, is in the near future that people start looking to own reserve assets and don't have the idea of reserve currencies in their mind anymore. And that is what I think will ultimately be the only option. If you really think about it, what are the options? Do you want to sit in the dollar and you want to risk what could play out here? Or do you want to have reserve assets? The choice is yours. Whether you consider Bitcoin a reserve asset, whether you consider silver a reserve asset, or gold like I do, that's where I want my nest egg to be parked. I believe in having a cash position. I'd like to be. I'm not quite there right now because I keep buying everything I get my hands on at a good deal. But I would like to be about 30-40% cash. And that's because I have a plan of action with that cash, because I think that overall, I would argue that we're in stagflation, and we have been in stagflation for the past year. And we're just starting to see the effects of that, of this invisible stagflation that the market, that like the Fed is hiding and the overall market is kind of hiding. And just recently it's starting to show how bad it really is. I think inflation, they showed it going from 8.5. I have the chart over here, but So they said inflation is down a little bit, down to from 8.5 down to like 8.2, 8.3. But we all know that's a joke. That's a joke. You can't inject 5x more dollars and think inflation is going to just go down on its own. I think inflation, really, the realistic numbers right now is somewhere around 20%. I don't know about you, and the other thing I've noticed is I've been going to the gas station, going to the grocery stores, and people are visibly distraught. Like at first, people were like, wow, this is crazy. But now people are visibly distraught. You can tell that it's actually hurting. It was like something to talk about in the beginning. It hurt, but now you can see that in people's faces when they're going and swiping their card at the grocery store, when they're going to the gas pump, it visibly is hurting them. And I think it's just a matter of time before we see the true inflation, which I think is around 20%, maybe higher than that. And then they're raising federal funds rate to not even 1% so far. And this is already happening. Already the beginning signs of a recession when you just start tilting. What I think will really happen is Powell gets caught in a bluff and they have to reverse the strategy. I think they'll go to negative rates. They're saying they're going to raise rates up. I think that they're proving, and we've talked about this in the past, that when they start twisting this knob of the federal funds rate and they twist it a little bit, raise it a little 50-point bip, 0.5%, we're seeing what happens right now in the stock market. So what happens when they raise it to 2%? They're not even at 1% yet. Not even at 1%, and they're causing this much of a tilt in the stock market. Imagine when they raise it to 2, 3, 4%. That's when a real recession comes into play. And when that happens, it's basically going to be their get out of jail free pass, because the recession is going to hit. We're going to see a market crash and plummet. Everything is going to crash, in my personal opinion, because of them raising the rates and tinkering around like they have. And then they're going to just reverse and change their entire strategy, probably inject a ton more dollars into the supply, because what are their other options? What are their other options? And the bet is to sit on dollars. From what we're seeing with the dollar index being this high, 103 on the dollar index, that's the bet. You think that the dollar is going to have strength? Like really, if you look past the smoke and mirrors, it's opportunity right now. It's really, I think this will be probably the largest wealth transfer of all time. For people that get ahead of this and have assets, have cash flow, if you have a plan of action with that cash will be king. Like let me kind of break that down a little bit. If you had cash in 2009 and 2010, you were in a very good position. You were in a very good position if you had a plan of action. You could buy real estate cheap, you had metals cheap, and then you saw everything skyrocket in 2011, 2012. So a lot of people might remember that, and they're getting into cash in the near term. But the hot potato theory is you get into cash in the near term, but everybody has a plan of action with that cash to throw it at something, and that will inevitably crash the price of the dollar because they all want to go into assets before inflation burns them. If inflation really is what I think it is, around 20%, then dollars, you can only be king with dollars for, a year or two, maybe 3 at most, probably a year. But that after that time period, that's when I think the US dollar starts losing its purchasing power. And I think this is literally that year where people are holding the dollar, recession's about to hit, and then the dollar will go up and then crash. And on that crash, that will skyrocket the price of precious metals. So can you time it out perfectly? No. None of us can time the market. If anybody here on YouTube tells you they can time the market and know exactly when silver and gold is going to go up, in my opinion, they're lying. But what we can do is develop a thesis and make a plan of action. I think cash flow is the best thing you can have as a business, producing cash flow, and with the cash flow, investing in assets and making sure you have about 30% liquid if anything happens. I mean, that's pretty much my game plan. I wish I was a little bit more strict with it because they're getting all these deals on silver and all these deals on gold. I've been buying up. If you follow me on Instagram, at Rob Sultan on Instagram, shameless plug, I've been posting a lot of the stuff that I'm buying. And so I've been buying quite a bit. And it's hard for me to get that 30, 40% cash position together. Every time I get like 20, 30% cash, it's like something comes up and it's like, I can't pass that up. I'm just a helpless squirrel. I keep buying, but I think it's a smart strategy to have a big cash pile here, only if you have a plan of action within the next 1, 2, 3 years at most with that cash. Because think about it. If inflation really is 20%, a year goes by, another year goes by, another year goes by, and you've lost half of your money's buying power if it's really where it is right now. Not to mention, if it keeps up at that rate, it's going to compound. You're going to have the compound interest in the way you don't want it to go. You want compound interest to go and help you, not have negative compound interest. And so basically, you're fighting against inflation if you are holding dollars, which is a big risk if you don't have a plan with those dollars. Everybody that's sitting with dollars under their mattress over the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years obviously has lost a fortune. It's the ones that do stuff with the cash and produce cash flow with it that actually get ahead. And so that's the only reason I think it's a good idea to have a big cash pile right now, is if you have a plan of action. That's a lot of the stuff I wanted to talk about. I haven't been doing one of these live streams in a long time, so I'm a little rusty at these. But I appreciate everybody for being here. I appreciate everybody hitting the like button and getting my videos out there to more people. Let me go through some of the comments real quick. See, Jerry is in the house. If you're not subscribed to Jerry Loves Freedom, you changed your name a little bit. Jerry Loves Freedom and Decentralized Assets. I like that. It's clean. It's to the point. I like that. Jerry gave me a super chat. He says, "Hey Rob, instead of keeping my money in cash, should I keep it in silver, and when the crash happens, cash my silver out to buy my assets?" It's a great question, and I think we've talked about it a little bit in this live stream, but just to go over that a little bit more, it's so hard for me to say this. It really is, because I don't believe in cash. I think cash is like the worst thing you can do is sit on cash. But the truth is, when you had cash in a recession and you have a plan of action with it, you can be in a very, very good position by having that liquid cash, because all these changes that could happen in the future, a new reserve currency coming out, maybe the yuan decides to become a reserve currency, things like that can destabilize the dollar, that's going to take a little bit of time. And so if you have a plan of action in the near term, I think that you could see the price of metals go down a little bit further. Now, this could happen way faster than I think, and then all of a sudden metals skyrocket. So I don't want to try to time it out, or else I'm going to be in a position where, if I didn't have a huge gold and silver position and I was sitting only on dollars right now, I would have anxiety at night. I don't think I could sleep, because if I'm sitting on just a big pile of cash that I know has been 5x'd, if you have a gallon of water and somebody adds 5 more gallons, how diluted is that water? It's like they've added quite a bit more dollars in the circulation. So I'd feel very uncomfortable being only in cash right now, because I can't time markets. But what does make me comfortable is having cash flow and doing things with those cash flows. So whatever business you have, or whatever plan of action you have with those dollars, I think it makes sense to have somewhere between a 20 to 30, 40% cash position right now, because we could be going into a major, major recession, far worse than 2009. And I think like when we say that out loud, people are like, oh yeah, sure, as bad as 2009. That was really bad in the housing market. It's like, that was for bad loans on houses. What will the recession look like when you have a bad loan on the currency itself? Like if there was one thing to say, it's like that a housing bubble caused the 2009 financial crisis, 2008, 2009 financial crisis. This is a bubble on the currency. Not just the houses, the currency itself is in a bubble. So it's like, okay. And then you have other countries trying to undermine that currency that's in a bubble with the greatest debtor nation. Like, kind of a sketchy scenario there. It could be the worst recession of all time. So preparing for that is tough, but cash is definitely part of that preparation. So to answer your question, Jerry, I think that having all of them, having a 20, 30% cash position, having silver, having gold, having Bitcoin, having all of these things is the basket that you want to have right now. And I think the most important one is your knowledge, making sure you're reading, making sure you're keeping up to with all the information. That's the most important there. And then building a business with cash flow would be the most important, because I don't think, like, say you have hypothetically, say I had a net worth of 100 grand, right? Say I have 100 grand and I put it all into silver and I'm like, YOLO, I'm good for life now. I have 100 grand in silver. Like, I think that's a terrible strategy. So it's what I think is a good strategy is taking, if I say hypothetically, I have 100 grand in my name, I would be like, okay, well, I want to put 50,000 into building my own business, 20,000 into silver, 10,000 in liquid cash, and another 20,000 in, say, gold or something along those lines. But I would have the idea of building a business or doing something to get cash flow with my money. But I don't like that theory of a lot of people where they're like, I'm all in Bitcoin. All I have is Bitcoin, or all I have is silver. All I have is gold, and I'm going to be rich in the future because I have it all there. I just don't think that that's the best strategy. And I like to mitigate risk. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. It's hard to time out and it's hard to make the proper plans, but that's the real answer. That's the real answer, because nobody knows which one is going to go the most or which one's going to hold the most value in the future. I believe in all of them. I believe in silver. I believe in platinum. I believe in Bitcoin. I believe in gold. I believe in palladium. Palladium is going at a huge discount right now. And I also believe in having a little cash position to build a business and to have that cash flow if the opportunity arises. But that's a little bit of a rant on that. Hopefully that helps some people, and hopefully that helps Jerry. And by the way, appreciate you, Jerry. Jerry's a super cool dude. And, really appreciate you being here, man. Going through a few more of these comments. Vacation time in the house. Vacation time says, hope you enjoyed your vacation. Awesome to see you back. I appreciate you, man. Thank you. Make sure I don't miss any of those super chats. I really appreciate when you guys do that. I don't like missing those. So basically that's my strategy in a nutshell. Overall, I think people are really underestimating what happens when the dollar index is strong and what happens when the dollar index weakens. Like, if there's one metric, if you want to know what's happening in precious metals, if there's one thing to watch, it's the dollar index. Because the dollar index is up, precious metals go down. Period. That's just, it's a reoccurring cycle. And what's interesting is that dollar index is sitting at these crazy lofty levels. So, hang on here. Because the interesting part is, as stocks sell off, they're going into dollars. So if the stock market sells off, what do you sell your stocks for? Well, they don't sell, their stocks don't trade for gold. So if the S&P is down and people are selling their stock, they're going into dollars. And that's why you see, if the stock market goes down, dollar index artificially goes up. And so that's what we're seeing now. Stocks go down, dollar index goes up, because the dollar, what's that money going to? Has to be going into dollars. But the interesting part is it's sitting at such a lofty level. I believe this is like 20-year highs for the dollar index. Let me pull this back a bit. Yeah, literally like 20-year highs for the dollar index. The last time it was this high was in 2002. So this is literally a 20-year high for the dollar index, despite the fact that we 5x the dollar supply in 3 years. 2-3 years. So that's pretty crazy. But a very good thing to study is the past here. What happened in precious metals when the dollar index crashed? And the dollar index crashed. So Great Recession, dollar index crashes here after the recession from the almost 90 level down all the way to the 72 level. And at this time is when we see this huge bull run in gold and silver, when the dollar index goes down. So what would happen if the dollar index goes to about here and then plummets down to around here? What would happen? It's really that clear. And so I hope that this video helps you. I hope that you now have the DXY on your radar to be watching. If you see the DXY going up a lot, you see the dollar index going up, odds are you're going to see precious metals pulling back. If you see the DXY crashing, you're going to be seeing an interesting scenario. So how does this play out? Well, how I see it happening, and this is why I think it's a good idea to have a big cash position. Again, I can't time it, so I'm not going to be selling my silver to have a bigger cash position. Maybe some to have a cash position, but I'm not going to be dumping all my precious metals to sit in cash and try to time this out, because it's just impossible to time. But the stock market has a lot of room to fall. When the stock market falls, where does that money go? Stock market crashes, the money has to go into the DXY. That's why we're seeing this jump in the DXY. Now, I think the stock market, I think the S&P could easily fall down to these levels here. Just a matter of time. I mean, we were talking about S&P falling down like around here, and now it's fallen all the way down to here. The S&P could easily start tanking down to the levels it was at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, in March 2020. It was at one point just over 2000 when that was really crashing here. This was technically considered like a little recession, but it really wasn't. It was just basically everything that was getting shut down causing that. but I think that it could easily crash here, and then you'll see everybody flooding into dollars. Now, that's the hot potato theory in action. Stock market crashes, dollar index goes up, so S&P crashes down, DXY artificially jumps up, which is what we're seeing right now, and then people have a plan of action with what to do with those dollars. So the DXY only sits at these artificial levels as people are afraid. They're afraid of the stock market, so they're selling out of their stocks, justifiably so. Then they go into the dollar. Then they sit on the dollar, and inflation starts burning their dollars in front of them. It's really so simple, but I don't see too many people talking about the hot potato theory in action. And I've been talking about my hot potato theory for a long time on this channel. If you're a subscriber, appreciate it. If you're not a subscriber and this video provides you some value, you know what to do. Somewhere there's a subscribe button. Click that. Would appreciate it. Appreciate people sharing my stuff, trying to build the channel out. But I really do see this playing out where the dollar index artificially jumps up, and then eventually people are going to go, okay, well, what do I do with these dollars before I lose 20% of them year over year? It's that simple. If inflation's eating me up at 20% year over year and I'm sitting on a bunch of dollars, I got to come up with a plan. Now, what do you want to do? You're probably going to be looking at reserve assets. And what is a reserve asset? There's reserve currency. And nobody seems to be talking about reserve assets. A reserve asset, in my mind, is a decentralized asset that is universally accepted. Gold is universally accepted everywhere. The Saudis like gold. Chinese like gold. Russians like gold. Everyone likes gold. You know, Europe actually has the pound sterling. The sterling is named after sterling silver, by the way. They literally have their currency named after sterling silver, but it's a fiat currency. Anyway, it's kind of funny. But these are universal assets worldwide, and that's what I consider is a reserve assets, something that is accepted worldwide, something that is considered a store of value worldwide. That is where I think the dollar will flood into. So basically, people sell off their stock market, DXY jumps up, and then they start looking for things to throw the DXY at. Real estate, way too high right now. So I don't know how much of it's going to flood into real estate. Probably a good amount of it still is going to go into these high-priced houses, but as they keep raising the federal funds rate, the loans are going to be more expensive to get these houses. So how much of the dollar is going to be going into real estate? A good amount of it, but I think a lot of it is going to be looking for reserve assets. Now is kind of the perfect scenario for that to play out. So it's going to be interesting. I could see, as much as it scares me to say this, I could see the stock market plummeting down. If I'm just going to, maybe I can clip this later on in the future, but I could see this playing this way. So if I really go into detail on my thesis, I could see the S&P crashing down to maybe not the bottom of those levels because they put so much cash into supply, but I think it could easily get to around here, around 3,000. The S&P crashes down to around 3,000, 2,500 range, somewhere in there. And then you see that money flood into the DXY temporarily, which would add a huge buying opportunity for precious metals. I think the DXY could easily jump up to like 110, 120 in that time period. And then you see this big opportunity to buy assets with an artificially overvalued dollar. Then people will throw the money as fast as they can get it because the inflation is going to start eating them away. And that brief 3 to 6 month time period when the dollar index is sitting up at 110, 120, maybe even 130 from all of the money flooding out of the stock market into the dollar, that is going to be the opportunity. That is going to be the opportune moment. That's what I'm looking for myself, and I'm basically building up a cash position for that possible scenario. It could get a lot worse. I'm just throwing that out there. Everybody wants to say silver, gold to the moon. Right now, it's going to be 10,000 an ounce tomorrow. I happen to be a little bit more realistic, and that's my realistic thesis. That's why I like to shoot these live, so there's no editing or anything. It's just kind of raw. But that's what I think could happen. I think the stock market could crash way worse, and that money will flood into the dollar. But that's what I'm looking at myself. Let me get to a few more comments, and then we will call it a night. I haven't done one of these lives in a while, so I hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. Please do hit the like button. Right now is about one of those times where I'll say something cheesy, like if we get to 150 likes up in here, I'll flip the timer for another 30 minutes, but it's getting a little bit late. So we'll probably shut this one down. Let me go back to this screen. But please do subscribe to the channel. There will be a lot more content coming on the channel in the near future. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I always give a notification whenever I go live on Instagram. So if you check my story on Instagram, at Rob Soltan on Instagram. Also, if you want to see like pictures of these bars here, this is just a small amount of bars that I've been purchasing. This is a pretty cool little hoard that I posted a video of on the Instagram. If you want to see close-ups of that, go to my Instagram, at Rob Soltan on Instagram. Been posting a bit more over there. Just because it's nice to be able to show the collectibles and things like that. But yeah, that's a rough summary of what I think of the overall markets and my kind of take on it. Again, I hope it helped you. I hope it was worthy of subscribing to the channel, maybe sharing it a little bit here and there to a friend or two. Maybe you'll hit the like button, maybe you won't. Up to you. We got 166 people up in here, 170 people in here. We got 84 likes on there. So some of you, about half of you, are sitting there by that like button and going, I don't know. I don't know about turning that thing blue or whatever. I don't know about hitting that like button. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. I hope you do. Maybe you don't. I don't know. Up to you. But if you hit the like button, I'd appreciate it. Let me get to a couple more comments, and we will call it a night. Real estate will collapse. It's already starting. It is. I'm noticing like what rents are going so high and real estate is so expensive. Who is going to pay for these rents? Like, you know that I was researching, and roughly 60 to 70% of the American population is living paycheck to paycheck. 60 to 70%. 50% of people that are in the six-figure range, making over $100,000 per year, 50% of them are living paycheck to paycheck. That's a real stat. Like, who is going to pay for these rents? If that many people are living paycheck to paycheck, 70% of the population, roughly, who's going to pay for these rents? And if nobody's there to pay for the rent, what happens to the real estate owner who is expecting that cash flow to pay for their mortgage? It's a very interesting scenario that's playing out here. And I think it really is just a matter of time. I agree with you, PMAC. The only real estate I'd be interested in is acquiring like a commercial property that I really needed for the business, if it was going to be for my business and it's an expense in that way. But in regards to like making a real estate investment, it's tough right now. It's really tough. I mean, the Airbnb thing is going off, but there's a lot of competition there. And how many people are going to be doing vacations with Airbnbs? How many people are going to be able to afford the rents? I don't know. And it's something to consider because, when I go to the grocery store, when I go to the gas pumps, people are hurting right now. I see it in their faces, and I'm looking around, I'm going, I hear you. You know, I hear you. I see it. So it's very interesting what could happen with the real estate market. The things you're talking about are significant. Just play what they're until that starts. Yeah. Zane, what's up? Zane's in the house. What do you think of Elon's brilliant plays on Twitter? He's feeling it. He's playing with fire, that guy. You know, Elon's based. I don't care what anybody says. Elon's based. And people might think I'm crazy for saying that. Some people agree, some people don't. But I mean, this guy could literally be chilling in Barbados on his own island somewhere, or wherever he is, some Caribbean island, and just dictating things with Tesla behind the scenes and just relaxing right now. He could be doing that. That is an option. You know, that's a very valid option for somebody worth that much money. Oh, sell, 5% of your Tesla position, buy an island, chill with a yacht, get a girlfriend. Like, he could do whatever he wants, really. And what is he doing? He's leveraging, like risking everything to buy Twitter. And now that we're seeing Tesla stock falling, where is Tesla stock? Let me show the screen real quick. See, this is what happens. I say I'm going to do a short live feed. I get an interesting question, and then we start going on a rant. You're tricking me. You're tricking me, Zane. It's working. Hang on. Let me check Tesla really quick. So Tesla, wow. Even that gets me a little excited about Tesla, because I think Tesla is going to be around for the foreseeable future. I just don't think you have custody when you own stock. So it's hard for me to ever want to buy a stock. But look at the price of Tesla. This is hurting Elon because he's leveraging his Tesla position to come up with that 40 some odd billion. He's in a pickle here. Because that stock's crashing and he's got to leverage against that stock. And that's a hard crash from the highs of 1,200 down to 660 and falling. Yeah, that's painful. What's the market cap on this? Let me see here. Yeah, market cap. I mean, they're over $1 trillion. Market cap's down to under 700 billion, 687 billion on the market cap. Yeah, he's hurting. He's hurting. That was right here is when you're feeling strong to do a crazy leveraged acquisition of Twitter. Right here, not so much. Not so much. You're feeling a little bit more pain there. He can pull it off, but he's probably going to have to start getting investors and things along those lines rather than just leveraging his Tesla stock, because that's really where his net worth is. He doesn't have 40 some odd billion sitting on the side right now. He might have a few billion, but he doesn't have that kind of money sitting on the side. He would have to leverage his Tesla position to do that. So that hurts. He's got to see that's turning around. And now he's got like all these rumors going out about him. I mean, he's playing with the crazy far left people, and he's right. They're a bunch of crazies. I think that it just blows my mind like that we have such this crazy divide between far left, far right. I'm a libertarian. I just believe in, hey, get out of my business. Both of you. Far right, far left, both of you get out of my business. I want the whole thing to be small. I'm sick of it. I'm libertarian to the core. So I'm not far right, not far left. I think a libertarian is as far left and as far right as possible at the same time. It's like you're the most liberal, conservative possible, which is like, it's weird to say, but that's how I see it. I just see it as, hey, they're dividing us on purpose to make the government larger. The founding fathers saw this happening ahead of time. Like they saw the foresight of the founding fathers is all there, that they would see the government using distractions to get larger and larger and larger. And before you know it, all your rights, all the things that they put in stone in the Constitution are taken away from us. All the amendments taken away, and they've gotten too large and too encompassing, and they take over everything. And so I agree with Elon that it's like it's just the extremes are way too extreme, and there's not enough people that just declare their individual sovereignty as a libertarian. I think really there is only one American party, and the only American party is the smallest one, which is like just shows you how distracted Americans have become. Americans are libertarians. The founding fathers are libertarians. The people who wrote the Constitution for the greatest country on planet Earth are libertarians. They're not far left. They're not far right. They're libertarians. They believe in get off my lawn. Hey, get off my lawn. This is my lawn. I like my lawn. Get off of it. That's pretty much what America was founded on. And if you get on my lawn and I don't like you on my lawn, I will fight you about it. So like that's pretty much the American way. And so for some reason, we've been just so like distracted from the truth. But that's how I see it. I agree with Elon in that sense. But he's in such a tough, the bind that Elon Musk is in right now is so crazy because he's running an electric car company that's supposedly like, renewable energy, far left, vegan activism, sort of thing. Like he's got vegan leather for his cars. He's in that crowd, and then he's combating that crowd at the same time as he's building that audience. Like the guy's, he really is, he might make an interesting situation to be able to acquire some Tesla, because Tesla's not going anywhere. They got a ton of cash in Tesla, and they have the gigafactories all booming in multiple different places. They got the Nevada one, they got the Texas one, they got the Berlin one, they got the China one. I mean, they're not stopping anytime soon at Tesla, and I'd imagine orders are through the roof. I was actually looking to buy a Tesla, and they keep selling so quick on the website. Might be an interesting opportunity if you believe in stocks. But yeah, it's funny seeing him so in such a gnarly pickle. And it's like, it's crazy because Elon's choosing to be in this crazy pickle. It's like, this guy likes unstable environments. Like he has got a thing for it. He could have the most stable, calm environment, chilling on an island, sipping a Mai Tai, whatever he wants to do. And the guy chooses to do that. It's just like pretty wild. But that's my little rant on that. It worked, Zane. You got me to rant a little bit on that. That's a good question. Yeah, but it's not worth. Zane says, yeah, but it's not worth $44 billion. They lied about the amount of bots to the as he. I believe Twitter is going to go bust. Advertisers are going to sue them to oblivion. It's a numbers game, but if Twitter was public, if it's going private with this $44 billion acquisition, if I was a gambling man, which I'm not really a gambling man, I would imagine with an Elon takeover and him at the helm of it, it would be worth hundreds of billions of dollars in the near future. Now, when we're valuing things in dollars, that's one thing, but I would imagine it being a really good buy at $44 billion if I was a gambling man and if I believed in the stock market, which I don't. I'm not a gambling man, and I don't believe in the stock market. So, but if I was, I think that it would be a very interesting thing because there's a lot of ways to monetize that platform, and Elon could shake things up quite a bit with his influence. He's got a really wide influence. Whatever he does has a very big scope. So it'd be hard to bet against that. I would certainly not short it. Would certainly not bet against him. That's just my take on it. And I think he can get the investors if he wants them. He's friends with all the billionaires in the world. He could easily come up with the investors to get the deal done. But it's going to be interesting. He's definitely I'm here for it. I mean, like this is I don't know if he's still the richest guy in the world. He's in the top 10. You know, I don't know. Based on how far Tesla's falling down right now, it really changes him from going number 1 to number 5, number 4, whatever he's at right now. But he could be doing a lot of other things than fighting for freedom. You know, fighting for individual speech. And whether people think he's doing that or not, the truth is, I mean, he's bringing it up. Hey, we need freedom of speech. We need a platform that is allowing freedom of speech and doesn't censor people. I'm here for it. I like the guy. I think it's a good thing. Another Zane. So Zane, there's another Zane, and this Zane, he gave me a super chat. I appreciate you, man. He says, Rob, please do more of these live streams. Love the content. I appreciate you, man, and I will. I got to get back to doing, I keep saying I'm going to do these Friday live streams with more consistency, but man, I'm building so much right now. I'm talking with coders. I'm developing the auction site. So if you don't know, I drop mineralexchange.com, mineralx.com as well. Link is in the description to my website. That's been taking up a lot of my time. It's one thing to build a website. It's another thing to know how to operate it and how to upkeep it and how to scale it. And so I've launched an auction house and I ran a few auctions. They did really well, the few that we did run. And now it's scaling it, and I'm about to launch a pretty big project there. So behind the scenes, it's like I take on so much, but I want to be doing these live streams because I really do enjoy it. It's like my way of venting. You guys are all my therapists in here. So I appreciate you letting me vent to you. And the fact that it helps other people, it's therapy for me. So I need to be getting back on it. I really appreciate you saying that, Zane. Seriously. Let me get down here a little bit. As much as people criticize Tesla stock price for being too overvalued, I can't imagine that Elon won't do anything for the stock to rise again. I wouldn't bet against the guy. I think there's a million other things that I would rather do with my capital than be a Jim Chanos and bet against the guy. Keep in mind, even if with this stock crash of it down to 660 a share, you got to multiply that by 5 because they did a 5-to-1 split. That's a very deceiving thing most people don't know. So it's really still over like $3,000 a share. So there's that. It's up quite a bit. So you got to calculate the 5-to-1. They might do another stock split to keep themselves from falling too much. The stock split seems to really be very manipulative, and the market eats it up because people don't look at market caps for some reason. They look at the stock price, which is just a sign of the times, but that's the truth. But yeah, I wouldn't bet against Elon. I wouldn't bet against him on Twitter. I wouldn't bet against him on Tesla. I wouldn't bet against him, period. The guy is not somebody to bet against. If anything, if Tesla fell down to like a couple $100 billion on the market cap and had a real crash and a real recession, as much as it pains me to say this, I might even take a bite out of it because they might accumulate assets on the balance sheet, and they have like the Gigafactory, all the things that they're building. There's assets behind that company, whether it's valued in dollars or whatever happens with the dollar devaluing. I think Tesla has enough assets at a certain level and has enough upside at a certain level, enough cash flow, things like that, that it would get interesting at a certain price. But not here yet for me. I'm just looking at it. I just think the overall stock market could easily have a 50% correction. As crazy as that sounds, I think the stock market easily have a 20% correction, but could have as much as a 50% correction in a real recession. And I think we're at the start of a recession. And I think this is we're in stagflation like we've never been in since like the 80s. And this is completely uncharted territory for the dollar, completely uncharted territory for the stock market, all of this stuff, because we've never injected this much fake money into the system. We only introduced fake money in 1971. So this is about 50 years fake money has been around. And so we keep tinkering with this, and they're messing around with this federal funds rate, and they're messing around with all these things at the Fed. And really, they just keep pouring more and more gasoline on the fire, and we're in uncharted territories with this bonfire. And it's so hard to navigate, but I hope that I have brought a little bit of sense to it. And I always really look forward to reading the comments and stuff and all the people getting back to me, because I learned from you as well. Because I don't know everything. I'm not some guru. I just like to share the little bit of information I do have, and I hope that helps some people. But the fact that we're able to talk in the comments, that helps me a lot, because I overlook a lot of stuff myself. Jerry says, what are your thoughts on Bitcoin right now? Are you buying right now? Will it drop? Rob Sultan for president 2032. You know, maybe one day. But if we keep growing the channel, it might happen. You know, if I get myself, grow this channel enough, maybe something like that could happen for president. But the way I see Bitcoin is it's foolish to be all in and it's foolish to have none. That's how I look at Bitcoin. The truth of the matter is, as much as people want to be jaded about Bitcoin, and a lot of precious metals individuals are jumping on Bitcoin and saying, oh, well, Bitcoin's down to 30,000. Well, also in March of 2020, at the beginning of the pandemic, Bitcoin was about $4,000. So there's that. I mean, that a lot of people don't want to accept that reality. They want to bash on Bitcoin, make sure that, you know, Bitcoin is just a terrible thing. But I mean, from March of 2020 until now, it's held some serious gains. So let me show you the Bitcoin chart. I mean, I like to just look at the facts on this. I am a little bit biased because I have a lot of Bitcoin in addition to my precious metals. I'm one of the individuals that believes in having both, but I can go into detail on that. It's a great question, Jerry. And I like to help kind of bridge the gap between precious metals individuals and Bitcoin, because there's such a huge gap when really it's like, why not own a little bit of both? Why not have a good amount of precious metals and have a little 5-10% position in Bitcoin? To me, gold and silver can never be digital, and Bitcoin can never be tangible. So it seems like a perfect bridge, right? I mean, it's that simple. No matter how they spin it, I will never, ever trust, and I've talked about this in the past, there are so many companies, and if you didn't notice, a lot of these precious metals channels, all of a sudden there's like an ad in the middle of their video, and not like a YouTube ad, but like an ad. They sprinkle that in the video because they're selling out. I don't do that because I'm building my own company, and I don't really want to advertise for any other company. But one company in specific, a few of them that are these blockchain-based gold and silver, I specifically won't ad for them, and I will not only will I not advertise for them, but I will continue to bash them and tell people that it is foolish to go and put your money in some blockchain-based gold and silver company, because you're going to trust your metals in somebody else's vault and they're going to give you a digital token. That just screams Bernie Madoff to me. I'm not doing that. I'm not letting my gold and silver sit in somebody else's vault while they give me some digital token. No, not a chance. So silver and gold can't be digital, but Bitcoin can. So the best digital asset is Bitcoin, and I don't believe in any crypto. Now we're seeing how fast cryptos can fall. Bitcoin is the only one that I believe in. I don't believe in any other one, but I believe in having a small position in Bitcoin. I got in kind of early, so my position's gotten pretty large, and I definitely feel it, but I don't touch it. I just sit on it. I'm not really buying more right now, and I'm not selling any. I've never sold my Bitcoin position. I started buying Bitcoin in March of 2020, and I'm just sitting on it. But if we really scroll, so people weren't going to say like, oh, well, it's fallen from 60,000 down to 30. What a huge plummet in Bitcoin. But then you pull up the 5-year chart and you look at it from March of 2020, when the beginning of the pandemic happened, and it was in the 4,000s. So yeah, you've seen Bitcoin crash, but I mean, pretty solid gains going on when you pull up the 5-year. So again, I'm not all in on silver. I'm not all in on Bitcoin. I'm not all in on gold. I believe in silver first. I believe in platinum as well, palladium. Then I believe in Bitcoin and gold. Like that's kind of my order of investing. But I think if somebody doesn't own any Bitcoin, I think right now is a good idea to research it first, learn about it a little bit, and then maybe have a little position in Bitcoin. But that's my take on it. I don't believe in all the hate. I believe in giving power to the people, and I think Bitcoin is a useful tool to give power to the people. That's how I look at it. Let me go back. But yeah, it's kind of weird, to be honest with you. Like, from what I've noticed, the Bitcoin crowd is a lot of libertarians, like all of them. Actually. So everybody in Bitcoin is libertarians. And you got to remember, the libertarian crowd is a very powerful crowd, but they're also very small. There's only so many of us that have figured this out. And are you going to divide those two groups? Are you going to divide those two groups of libertarians, or are you going to embrace each other and say, hey, this is why I'm in gold and silver. Why are you in Bitcoin? Well, interesting. Maybe I'll get a little bit of that. But you talk to each other and you kind of work things out. But it's like, it's just crazy to see the headbutting going on when these are the like-minded people that we need to embrace. You need to have both. You need to have like how much purchasing power you have out of the banking. And I'll end the live feed on this because otherwise I'll just keep ranting and people will keep asking good questions and trick me to keep staying live for 4 hours because I always want to do these live streams for 30 minutes and then all of a sudden they go for 2 hours, 3 hours. But I got to end it at some point because I don't want to be up too late. But I'll end it on this. Basically, when you look at how much money do you have outside of the banking system? How much money do you truly have custody of? How much assets do you truly have custody of? When you have a stock, when you own Tesla stock, for example, do you actually own it or does E-Trade own it? Does Robinhood own it? Does, Scottrade, TD Ameritrade, do they own your Tesla stock? They do. You don't own the Tesla stock, and you better hope their app works when you want to sell it. And you better hope the dollar you're selling it for has purchasing power. And you better hope that the app opens when you want to sell it and they answer the phone when you call them to sell it. And if they don't, you better hope that they're able to transfer it in the wire transfer system. That's a one node outdated system that the Fed runs, that the Fed wire system's working to move from the stock account into your bank account. And you better hope that bank is solvent because they're all not. And that bank is able to give you those artificial fake dollars. You better hope that whole system works out of custody there. So when you realize just how ridiculous and how much power has been stripped from the people because people don't have custody of their assets like they think they do. People don't own their stocks. Somebody else owns their stocks. And they figure that out when people don't pick up the phone lines in a recession. If the stock market plummets 20% tomorrow, they're not going to be able to pick up the phones. They're going to be getting so many phone calls at TD Ameritrade and whatever. Their app might crash. This happened with Robinhood where they only allowed you to sell if you were in GameStop. They artificially manipulate it and it proves that you don't have custody of these assets. Somebody else has custody of these assets. So what it comes down to for me when it comes to silver, when it comes to gold, when it comes to a Rolex, when it comes to, platinum, palladium, Bitcoin, real estate, it's like, how much do you have outside of traditional banks? How much assets do you really have custody of? And does a person that owns only silver, so put silver and gold in the picture. If you own only gold, who has more purchasing power outside of the banking system if there's somebody that has silver and gold and there's somebody that only owns gold? Well, the person who has silver and gold has more purchasing power because when they're going to barter, maybe somebody wants silver. When they're going to barter, maybe somebody wants gold. So the person who has both has more purchasing power outside of the banking system rather than the person who only has one. Now, if a person has silver, gold, platinum, palladium, and they have all of these metals, do they have more purchasing power outside of the banking system than the person that only owns silver? Yes. So for me, it's like, okay, well, what if I have 20% cash, I have a big silver position, a big gold position, a big platinum position, big palladium position, big Bitcoin position, and I have collectibles, and I have all these things around that. I have more purchasing power outside of the banking system than the person that only picks one. That's how I look at it. How much purchasing power do I have outside of traditional banks? And I think more people need to look at it from that perspective. How much custody, how many decentralized assets do you hold? That's what matters to me, because I'm all about giving power to the people. And I'm seeing more and more people bartering on forums online and stuff in gold, more people bartering in silver, more people specifically asking for platinum. Platinum is getting really hard to find at these levels. They're pretty much giving away platinum. I'm big bull on platinum. I'm very bullish on platinum, very bullish on palladium. So it's like, I believe in having an assortment of decentralized assets. And some people might say it's a good strategy to intensify. I would call that an intensified strategy. I just bundle it together and say, I invest in decentralized assets. I invest in universal assets that are accepted everywhere, that people see as valuable everywhere, that aren't pegged to a dollar, that aren't pegged to traditional banks. I see Bitcoin as a decentralized wire transfer system. That's how I see Bitcoin. If I was just going to break it down, that whenever I go to do a wire transfer at the bank, the amount of stuff I have to go through is so annoying. You have to go routing, account number, business address. You have to sign it all off, do all this paperwork. So much work to do a wire transfer, and you have to do a wire transfer for large amounts. So I deal with quite a bit of them. We're all getting around it by doing e-checks. This new e-check thing is pretty good, but it will only be a matter of time before they crack down on that. But wire transfers are so complex and foolish that Bitcoin is an excellent fix to that. Where if I want to wire transfer money digitally, Bitcoin is a situation where I can do a way easier wire transfer and I don't have to ask permission to do so. That's how I look at it. Like with a wire transfer, I have to get permission. I have to go to my bank, say, hey, sending the money to this guy. Is it cool if I use my money? You know, the money that you're making, not paying me any interest on? You know that money? See that 100 grand sitting there in the Mineral Exchange account? See that money, banker? And I would like to send that to buy more inventory if that's okay with you. If I use my money that you pay me no interest on, that I let you sit on, would it be okay with you if I send that to this other party to run my business? Would that be okay with you? Oh, yeah, sure. Just put the account number, the routing number, their business address, sign these 4 papers, and we'll do that for you in about 24 hours. With my money? Oh, sure. Oh, sure, banker. No problem. No problem. Let me do that for you. Give me the paperwork. Okay, thank you. You got my 100 grand, right? Okay, one sec. Like, this is the system that we have to deal with. This is like the founding fathers would laugh at us. They'd be like, you trust them with fake money and you have to beg them for your fake money, for them to transfer your fake money with their foolish one-node system. You have to, what? But Bitcoin is something where I can just log in my cold storage and just boop, send, copy, paste, boom, gone. You know, send it. I don't have to ask anybody permission. So that's how I see it. Anyway, I'll keep ranting on that forever, but that's why I own both. It's just a better wire transfer system, in my opinion. And I think it's foolish to have none. But yeah, that's the video. And I think the same reason why precious metals are down is the same reason why Bitcoin is down. Dollar index is strong, and Bitcoin is correlated I would say a lot more to the stock market. Metals are not as correlated to the stock market, but Bitcoin seems to be trading like a tech stock. So it's providing an opportunity here because a lot of people don't understand it yet. But that's how I see it. You're lucky you're not a political dissident. I'm a college dropout, so that's a big word for me, Brucey. I don't know if I can handle dissident. They're debanking people. Yeah, you're right. And so it's like, I'm trying to get ahead of that. Because we're seeing it in smaller countries, them debanking people right now. But that's something to get ahead of. Like the things that happened in Canada, that was very telling. If anybody wants to hold their money in a bank after them freezing your accounts for who you donated to, like if that's not a sign to not trust banks, I don't know what is. I don't know why people are keeping their money in the banks, but anyway, that's I could rant on that for a long time. The Perth Mint, Aaron brings up the Perth Mint. I actually just bought a huge 20-ounce gold Perth Mint. Should be here on Monday. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see pictures of all this stuff, by the way. All the stuff that I'm buying, all of this, you'll see videos of this, you'll see all the collectibles and stuff. So shameless plug, follow me on Instagram, at Rob Sultan on Instagram if you want to see the stuff that I'm buying. But he says the Perth Mint has stopped selling the following: 1.1 ounce minted silver bars. This is their cheapest bullion. Is that true? The smaller the bullion size, usually the more expensive. 10 ounce silver cast bar because it's cheap to create, and 3 they have run out of a half-ounce gold bar. It's interesting. That's interesting. I know that I can have access to it because I'm a smaller dealer that has access to like the smaller channels. So I would kind of operate in the shadows in a way where I have access to silver. So if somebody contacts me on Mineral Exchange, I put the contact info on the website. So if you haven't made an account on the website, just go to mineralx.com. There should be a link down there. Mineralx.com, like SpaceX, but MineralX, and just send me an email. There's a contact form there, or I made a new contact button just to put my email. I used to have this kind of fancy form, but I figured just shoot me an email will be the better way to do it. Info@mineralx.com is the email, but all that information is on the website. So I'd register an account with the website, and if you put in your email there, you have to put the right email because you got to verify it, and then you can make an account with Mineral X. And then that's my company, and you'll get email blasts whenever I do have stuff in stock, which will be in the near future. I've been working on a lot of stuff behind the scenes, guys. It's a lot of work, but eventually I'm going to be able to help out in these types of scenarios because the big companies are running dry, but the small ones are able to work behind the scenes and able to get more bullion than they might when they're sold out. It's funny how it works that way. And not only that, but you get better prices from the smaller dealers because the smaller dealers don't have overhead. Perth Mint has a lot of overhead. A lot of these big companies have a lot of overhead, a lot of employees to feed. But when you're a smaller niche dealer, you have better access to bullion, and you also can work way, way less expensive because you're on thinner margins with less overhead. It's really that simple. But make an account on my website, and I could probably help you out in that scenario. But Perth Mint has been involved in a few scandals. I don't know if the scandals are true or not, but I don't know how much I trust Perth Mint. I know their products are legit, like I believe in that it's their purities and everything like that. But Perth Mint I believe they've been involved in a few scandals. I don't want to get into it, but it's kind of strange what's going on over there. Mark Alvarez says, "Homeboy Rob, love this channel. Just got on the video, but will watch the rest. Appreciate you, Mark. Thank you, man. Yeah, all these live streams, by the way." The information that I want to talk about in the video is in the first about 30 minutes of them, and then I'll start taking comments and stuff. Some people have actually told me like, oh, he takes too much comments in these videos. It gets annoying, but I'm never going to stop doing that. I like interacting with everybody in these live feeds, and so I like to rant in the beginning and kind of get the points that I want to get across in the beginning, and then kind of have fun ranting with everybody in the comment section toward the end of these live streams. I appreciate everybody being here. I get this thing to figure out here.